What's up, guys? Phoenix here. So I went ahead and decided that I was going to do at least one more of these Ritual Beast combo videos before I decided to call it quits and wait to see how people liked them. Specifically because this combo is a bit more in-depth and I feel like it's worth covering. Now, like I said, based off whether or not these videos are well received or not, I may continue to do them in the future with some of the, more linear parts of the deck, because this deck is very non-linear when it gets functioning. But this is going to be a first turn, combo, or at least a combo demonstrating, if you're starting from bare essentials, basically scratch. So, essentially the first turn of the game, if you open with Elder, Rampengu, and either DEVpro or have Macrocosmos face up on the board. Now, assuming you're going first, it's going to have to be DEVpro, but it does not matter which one based off, what turn of the game it is. DEVpro isn't in my main deck of the build that I showed y'all, but is most definitely in the side deck, and it could easily be moved into the main if it is something that you want to have in your deck to be another banishing type floodgate sort of card. But essentially, this combo ends with an ulti Conahawk with live tagouts in the banished zone, and it ends with any 3 searches that you want. Most often it's going to be double steeds and an ambush. So you end up searching 3 of your traps and having a live ambush as well as having a live tag out, strictly due to DEVpro and the fact that Rampengu fuels your banish zone under DEVpro or macro more efficiently than Conahawk does. So essentially I'm just going to get straight into this and show y'all how it is done. There's not a lot of really special steps for this one either. You're obviously just going to start off by activating your Dimensional Fissure, normal summoning Elder, and then getting the additional normal summon on Rampengu. Now you're going to use Rampengu's effect to banish one of your Ulti YGOpros from your extra deck. And Ulti YGOpro, being a psychic, is going to allow you to put one of your tamers in the grave. But since you have DEVpro / macro up, it is going to get banished instead. So all of your tamers are psychics, and usually at this point I send Laura simply because you're going to have more cards banished than engrave, so Win is actually going to be the better one to draw into. But you are still going to have the ability to put some of your Ritual Beasts in grave, but Pilica is just a more accessible card. And Laura has 2,000 defense, and that ass is sometimes very relevant. So you end up banishing Laura off of Rampengu's effect, and you just do your standard thing, contact into Ulti Conahawk, and then Ulti Conahawk, you'll activate its search effect, and you'll target YGOpro and a Rampengu to put back off of the search effect. You'll tag out into Rampengu and Elder again, using their once per turn special summon and forcing YGOpro into the grave and searching your first trap card. So you'll get your steeds or your ambush, whichever one you want to search first. And these have used their summon per turn. Now you use Rampengu's effect one more time, and this time you're going to banish a copy of Ulti Conahawk from your extra deck, and that will send a regular copy of Conahawk to your graveyard, but DEVpro is still up, so he is banished instead. So it's fueling you for 2 cards every time that you summon, instead of Conahawk normally fueling for 1. That is actually just very relevant when you have a card like DEVpro or macro face up on your field. So now you'll tag out, or contact in rather, with these 2 again. I'm putting them vertically again so that it's very obvious that they've used their one special summon. And this is how I play too. Whenever I play this deck in like tournaments or whatever, I always put the ones that have been summoned in a different position, and then I unify them all to the same position at the end of every turn, so that it's easier for myself and my opponent to track which cards have been summoned and maintain the game state. But anyway, you contact into your Ulti Conahawk for the second time, and you'll activate its effect, and you'll target the banished Ulti Conahawk as well as the regular Conahawk, or Laura. It doesn't matter. It just has to be one of the ones that you haven't summoned yet. So either of these 2. You don't want to target these as of right now, just because it's a bit easier to control your graveyard setup later if you wait to start putting any of your non-fusions into your graveyard off of these effects. So you'll target these 2 for the search effect, and then you'll contact out once again into, this time, Conahawk and Laura. And the Ulti Conahawk will get forced into the grave, and you'll get your second search, which will be for your second trap, for your ambush. So at this point you have Steed's ambush set up, but you still haven't used Conahawk's effect, and you still have one more fusion possible for this turn. And so what you're going to end up doing is, what I do at this point is that I use Conahawk to banish Apelio, simply because you're not going to want to be putting Rampengu on the board anymore, like later in the game, or at least not putting it on the board to use its effect. And Apelio starts getting the few cards that are in your graveyard back out of the graveyard to keep yourself fueled up in your banish pile. So he is the one that I typically banish first off of this Conahawk. That is my own preference of plays, but you can banish literally any name. It doesn't matter, because you're not going to be contacting out or tagging out any further in this turn after you make the third ulti Conahawk summon happen and get your third search. So, regardless, you'll contact the Conahawk and the Laura into the third ulti Conahawk and activate its effect for your third search. Now, because you have an ambush, you're going to end up putting Apelio as well as an Elder in the grave. Now, the reason I typically choose Elder over Laura is because you can contact this out in response to an attack, and Laura having 2,000 defense is sometimes relevant, but it very rarely comes up in that instance, simply because of the fact that you're going to be steedsing, and you're going to have potentially 2 steeds, and you can steeds for up to 4 cards twice during your opponent's turn. So the fact that they might be able to run over your cards, but it's very unlikely. But anyway, you'll place Apelio and Elder into the graveyard and get your third search. Now, you can either search for Win, or you can search for another Steeds. Typically, you just go for Steeds, simply because you want to go ahead and have it, because you'll be able to search for more monsters on your next turn if you don't have to dedicate one of your searches to the Steeds that you passed up on this turn, thus heightening your play ceiling on your following turns, as well as you've seen more cards at that point, so you have a better idea of what monsters you want to grab. But you can't tag out with this again, because these have all been summoned. The only one that hasn't been summoned is Apelio, but you put it in the grave, or at least I personally put it there. And so this opening essentially achieves the same thing that opening Elder Conahawk does, but with the addition of DeFissure and having Rampengu in circulation instead, you have more names circulated, and you have more things to banish off of Apelio. You have 2 Steeds and 1 ambush. So you're going to be able to pop up to 8 monsters on your opponent's turn, simply because on your opponent's turn, if they activate like Shaddoll Fusion or something, even though you're already at an advantage because DeFissure is up, but you'll still be able to tag this out and get these 2 back, thus not having an extra card out on the board anymore. As well as you have ambush plus double steeds, so you can still ambush during your opponent's end phase or at any point during their turn, getting these out, and you'll start your next turn with these 4. Or you'll deal with up to 8 monsters that they control. So this is definitely one of those really heavy openings that if you open this, it's what I consider an auto win, where your opponent is essentially not going to be able to get a decent enough foothold in the game to combat your fields and your potential plays, because at most you're only ever going to have to use 2 of these. Depending on the deck they're playing, this is already hurting them. If they're playing BA, Shaddolls, Clees, Necros, this card is insane against them, especially in conjunction with Steeds, because the Pendulum monsters will not go to the extra deck. Shaddolls and BA, they obviously get banished, and Necros can't rely on their graveyard as a source of resource for Mirror and Cycle. And all of their ritual spells that they activate are not going to get full value, simply because all of the monsters are going to be banished. Obviously, Macro is a bit better, but still, their monsters are not going to hit the graveyard. So even if they activate, ritual spells, there's going to be no Necros monsters in the grave for them to banish in order to recur and gather and recruit more copies of ritual spells to their hand off of the banished effects from the Necros ritual spells in grave. And starting your next turn with these cards on your board and still potentially having a Steeds left over is absolutely insane. It is what I would consider the very definition of an auto win. Like, if you open this sort of a combo, I don't think your opponent usually your opponent doesn't get to essentially play the game, and that's really powerful, especially for a deck like this. This deck is very, very efficient at producing boards that your opponent has to dedicate a lot of resources into getting over, specifically because Steeds is such an amazing support card for the deck. And even though all these cards have a once per turn special summon restriction, you can easily get around that if you operate the deck with the proper mindset. But anyway, that is all for this video. It got a bit lengthier than I wanted it to be again, but again, explanation. I needed to explain this so that I wouldn't be asked about it and have to type it all out individually to every single person that wanted to ask me about it. That's essentially what the purpose of what these videos are trying to serve, as well as just being content. So anyway, as always, guys, thanks for watching. Comment, rate, subscribe. Like the video if you like this type of content and you want me to continue producing combo videos for Ritual Beasts in the future. That's specifically what I'm going to be looking for off of this video. If you want me to continue doing Ritual Beast related videos, definitely like the video, and that will let me know that you guys want to see more of these, and I will definitely try to touch upon as many of the deck's aspects in future videos as I possibly can. But as usual, links are in the description to both my Facebook pages. If you want to chat with me, go to either link, do the appropriate action with either. That is going to be the best way to do so. Click an ad if you have not. I'd greatly appreciate it. It helps me make money, and there's no reason to lie to you guys about that. But I cannot force you to click anything because I don't have telepathy, and the internet hasn't developed that far yet to where I can control you through your mind through the computer screen. So I would just not take it personally, nor be offended if you decided not to do so. Just know that it would help me out immensely, more than you could ever know, more than I could ever express in my lifetime, if it would, if you would take the time to click an advertisement. It helps me make money, and that's something that, is very crucial to people living in this country, at least. But it would just be very appreciated without getting any more wordy than I already have, more than you could ever know. But that's going to be it for this video. As always, guys, take care.